immigrants or the rich versus the wealthy, or I mean the wealthy versus the poor. And none of it, I feel like, gives credence to the idea that we're all connected and we all need each other to do better.
But we're smarter than this, and I think a lot of us know that when the media sees those algorithms go down on what their top news line is, then they go to the E. coli scare.
Yes. Distraction.
Oh, it's like they must have, and it's like, so let's not cover how E. coli gets spread. Let's not talk about, animals have feces. And
or
they talk
98
about hand washing, but they didn't say, we all know that animal feces can be in any farm product, anything.
Or that 98% of E. coli is eliminated by just simply washing your fruits and vegetables. No, it's don't buy
And
spinach.
Children need to wash their hands after they pet animals. But
And
when
again,
you ask any farmer, they say, I've gone in the house and forgot to wash my hands, and I didn't, it's like all of a sudden it's a scare.
Yeah. When really, just take responsibility for yourself. Wash your damn fruits and vegetables. You don't know where they've been.
Yep. Or if your child contracts something, maybe they were susceptible to something, Maybe
they had a weak immune system at that point. Yeah.
It was all just.
Yeah.
It just happened, and it's sad.
But don't buy spinach, even if it puts the spinach industry completely out of business. Just don't buy spinach. Yeah.
No.
Or whatever
Yeah.
I think it was romaine at one point.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Or
And
strawberries.
And again, that's strawberries.
And don't pet animals.
But that's the
don't
outrage
go to the farm.
fear culture. Yeah. And you see that a lot more in, again, mainstream media or radio. Radio is really big for that kind of stuff too, which I guess is old media also. Talk radio's been around. Jeez.
They forget about the real news, though.
No.
Is what's really going on, and let's talk about this, because how many times have you said, whatever happened with that?
Yeah. Well, like I said with Venezuela and MSNBC, 4 months ago, they couldn't stop talking about Venezuela when the U.S. was really pushing for this coup against Maduro to happen. And then the Venezuelan people protested, the United States people protested. We went to the embassy, took over the embassy for over a week, the Venezuela embassy in Washington, D.C. And lo and behold, this coup against the president never happened, which is good because, in my mind it's good because the president was democratically elected. I think 80% of the Venezuelan people had never heard of Juan Guaido until he announced himself president. But that's not something that's reported to U.S. citizens. So it's this whole narrative that's drummed up to gain U.S. citizen support for a U.S. military-backed coup against the democratically elected president. But when that coup failed, immediately you stop hearing about that and you start hearing about Iran. Yeah. And that's really interesting how they think that we're not gonna remember that just 2 weeks ago you guys were talking about overthrowing the president of Venezuela. You think that we forgot about that. It's wild to me. The people that had taken over the embassy, the Venezuelan embassy, they were all arrested. These were U.S. citizens that were arrested. And as Abby Martin pointed out, there also seems to be a racial component because the indigenous people who are, for the majority, living in the barrios, they are in a lower economic status as the wealthy citizens of Venezuela, who also happen to be more of Spaniard descent than indigenous descent. And that's just one small nuance to the whole Venezuelan issue that never is reported. I'm not saying that because it seems to be a racist movement that it's automatically right, but when you talk about, our mainstream media will say, the socialist dictators' policies are causing 40,000 children a year to die in Venezuela because of lack of medications. And then you find out that it's U.S. sanctions that are preventing those medications from being supplied to the Venezuelan people. Britain or
Did
England.
BBC comment
Well,
on that?
Yeah.
Because that's just it, is where do we
Yeah,
get our news
yeah.
and how do we compile the truth?
From as many sources as possible. That's what I
Right,
think.
exactly.
Do you know what the availability heuristic is?
The what?
The availability heuristic?
No.
The availability heuristic is basically what it is that we think things are more likely that we have more examples of. Like, for instance, a lot of people are afraid of flying because there are more examples of plane crashes and car crashes in the news.
Mm-hmm.
Or people are afraid of lettuce because for a week straight all the news is talking about how your lettuce is poisoning you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Who's driving this? Is this like a corporate driving this news?
no, it's just how our brains work. So if you consume a lot of negative content, your brain will go, remember, the world is a bummer and there are murderers on every corner, and because that's what you consume day in and day out. So if all of the media you consume is saying the same thing, your brain will automatically think
That's the reality.
That's what reality is.
So essentially, you gave your attention to these negative aspects of reality, and so that becomes your whole reality. That becomes your perspective of the world.
Yeah, not only that, but our brains like negative things a lot more than positive things.
Because it's a survival mechanism, right?
Yeah, because our memory is very adrenaline based. So someone says something mean to you and you'll remember that for 20 years, but a million people say a million nice things to you and, oh, that's not true. Someone didn't like their pants one day. You know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And what was it called again?
The availability heuristic.
Heuristic, the availability heuristic. So basically, if all you consume is negativity, that eventually becomes your outlook. Okay.
Isn't that like when you raise children too?
How so?
One bad thing,
Uh-huh.
you hold on to it.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you're not a very aware parent, because I think that this is the instance that cancels out the availability heuristic, because when your child does bad stuff all day long and then they do one good thing, you're like, oh, you're so good. You are so wonderful. I love you so much. Let's keep this going.
Well, there's your adrenaline hit.
Yes.
And your brain goes, oh, let's remember that.
Yeah.
Keep it happening.
Yeah,
Like
let's
that.
we like that. We want to see more of that. And oh, perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, and that's interesting. And so if you think about it, all of our kind of social identity, at least on a national level, whether you're right-leaning, or I should say right-leaning to the camera high, and left-leaning, that's where that comes from, really, if you think about it, and we have so much information available at our fingertips all the time that it's really easy to, not pay attention to kind of what's going on around us in the physical world, but you can absorb, like she said, the more you see a negative idea or a negativity, the more you perceive that to be the norm. If you have 10 minutes on a break and you decide you want to browse through Facebook and 9 out of 10 of those posts that you see are really truly negative, how does that affect your day? Yeah. And then the other part of it is, it freaks me out that you cannot trust your eyes or your ears anymore. You cannot, because I think about kind of the nefarious ways that news organizations go about presenting the news to us in a narrative that's been pre-approved, I feel like it's not a long leap into, maybe falsifying somebody's statements, or, because we've seen that.
How many stories have you heard somebody leave something out?
Yeah, lying by omission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To say their point. Well, isn't that debate?
Yeah.
You can say part of the truth, and as
Right.
long as you make a point.
Right. As long as it's your point that was debated and not the truth of your statement that's debated.
Well, even the debates they had, they were interrupting each other.
I did
These are
like,
political people.
yeah, I did like the exchange between two of them. I forget the fellow's name in the Democratic debates, but he was talking about how we must stay engaged in the Middle East because, honestly, I don't remember what his rationale was. Basically, we can't let the Taliban, do what they've done to us in the past. And then Tulsi Gabbard jumps in and she says, well, first of all, it wasn't the Taliban that committed the 9/11 attacks. It was Al-Qaeda, and the Taliban has been around for longer than any of us have been around, and they're going to be around long before or long after we leave. But why did I bring that up in the first place? Oh, just that.
How they debated.
Yeah. It was just, you don't see very often, like on a news program, and that's the debate, so you hope that there would be that kind of exchange in the debates. But on a news program, when somebody says something that's false or glosses over a really important piece of information because it doesn't fit their narrative, and nobody calls them out on it then and there, if somebody would just say, well, actually, that's not true, that would do a huge service to the people, as opposed to people just keeping their mouth shut and allowing that
And
omission.
I love that when they just flow out. This is the information that is happening, and then the other one can throw out, well, this is the information instead of their opinion, instead of what.
I like it when this is what, and in talking about just American politics, this is what the White House says, this is what people who oppose their position say, and this is what people who support their position say. That's as clean of information in a debate that you're going to get, is when you have both sides there saying, this is our stance, and this is what, again, for example, the White House
But that's still
says.
opinion, though, too.
I would challenge you to find a news media outlet that is not opinionated.
Exactly.
What I value more is the ones that say, oh, I am damn opinionated, but at least I tell you, so that you know that that's the bias that I have.
But how do we as people connect those two? I mean, that's what is the problem. It's like I'm on one side, you're on the other. So how do we have a conversation?
Well, we have to
People are shutting people down.
Oh, yeah. Huge rifts in families because of this stuff. And people, like, we got to be
Where do we go?
grown-ups.
Yeah,
you
where
know?
do we go from here?
I think that we need to understand that not every issue is black and white, and that's okay. And you have to be able to understand the entire issue before you can form an opinion on it. And that's not how we're wired. We're wired to have our gut visceral reaction, and then that's what we stick to generally. But a lot of times, if we're just presented with either a piece of information that contradicts what we already believe, we reject it immediately, as that must not be true, or, that sounds shady. I bet that that's presented at some angle that makes it look like it works for that argument, or whatever it is, rather than saying, oh, that's a piece of information that I didn't have before, and now I'm going to internalize that and process that, and I'll get back to you. But we can't do that. We want to be right now.
But yeah, all we need to do is listen and collect information.
And I think that if everybody did that, we would be more than capable of making intelligent decisions, not just in our daily lives, but when it comes to who we're going to vote for our politicians, what companies we're going to support, whether it be I love to come back to this example because Google, when they first were up and running, they had their motto, which was, don't be evil. We're a corporation, but we're not an evil corporation. That's our mission, is to not be evil. And now all you hear, by the way, they've taken that off of their website. That's no longer their motto. And everything that you hear about Google is how they're using your personal information and search history and browsing history to sell advertising to you, to get your support for certain political candidates, to present news to you in a way that drives a particular perspective. Those are all things, and that's why I keep coming back to Google for that example. Is, just because our political system is set up to have representatives doesn't mean that we have to vote for evil representatives. Educate ourselves more, learn more, gain perspective, and then go and vote.
Yeah.
Engage with corporations,
Or at least
sure.
study
Yeah.
what you're going to vote.
Yeah, and engage with corporations for sure, but learn about these companies, find out what they're doing with the power that they're gaining from not just your pocketbook, but your attention, because again, the whole point of this talk today is power goes where your attention goes. Learn about these corporations that have such a huge influence in our lives, and educate yourself so that you can make good choices as a consumer.
But even when you said get in touch with your community, find out what affects them. But like you said, we feel helpless.
Not what affects people in your community. What in your community affects you? And where can you put your attention? Because what makes, in keeping with the overarching idea that Google set out in the first place, is don't be evil. What in my community is harmful or disturbing, and how does it affect me, and can I affect that issue in a positive way? That's where you start. Not what's wrong with my community and where can I help. No, what affects me in my community and how can I help that situation? Because if it helps you, it's going to help other people also. In one of our first talks, I talked about how everyone has the ability to make an absolutely unique individual contribution, and nobody can tell you how to do it or what to do, or what your contribution should be. You're the one that has to decide that, and it's through your unique imagination and your unique life experiences that you personally are going to find the best way that you can contribute, and nobody can tell you how to do that. And that's why I say focus on yourself. What in your community affects you, and affect it.
Road construction.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, for heaven's sakes, can we please not have a monopoly on all of Rapid City's road construction so we can get more stuff done? Because I'm not going to say the company, but the company that does all of the road construction is seriously overbooked, and they are not able to complete their tasks in a timely fashion.
The guys are standing there, and then there's 3 of them working.
Yeah. Meanwhile, there's 3 other construction companies that could just as easily be picking up one of those bids had this one company not gotten all of the contracts for the next 3 years. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
That's a community issue.
Yes.
That is a community issue. And so if that's something that drives you crazy, please go and address that and pay attention to that. Because the more that people are...
Didn't Allender say that none of our community contractors would be able to handle something? And there was a contractor that said, that's true.
Malarkey.
Yep. There
That
are
is Boulder
lots
Dash.
of companies that can handle.
I'm not going to say company names, but I can think of 3.
But it was awesome that they actually had that on the news.
That's fantastic.
And
there
you
that's,
go.
Yeah, let's keep that ball rolling. Who are these other companies?
Yeah.
Let's go to the city board and
I
say,
couldn't believe he was so blatantly there is nobody. It's like, what?
yeah.
There are so many construction companies.
It's so,
capable.
yeah. What a silly statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Non-informed statement.
Yeah.
Run by
Well,
what?
no, that's an establishment statement.
That's what I mean. Run
Yeah.
by what?
I mean, I have no doubt that Allender is completely informed. What I do doubt is that whether or not he actually pays attention to local bids, or whether he already knows what company he's going to give those contracts to, or whoever makes that decision.
Oh, he obviously would have known who he
Yes.
was going to give it to if he said
Yeah.
that.
And now think about that on a national level. What
But
happens?
that's where our
Mhm.
false information starts, where the corporation starts to
Mhm.
affect.
Lobbyists and corporate dinners and all of that stuff. That's where they get their foot in the doors of all of our representatives, and they start buying opinion and buying support. And that's why, I mean, if you really think about it, the only effect that we as national citizens can have is citizens of our communities. These people are going to, and I mean, unapologetically call them psychopaths. These people that are at the very top of our government that get to make these policies where small, family-owned state, local corporations or sole proprietorships or whatever it is, they kind of get pushed out. Especially in talking about construction and things like that, development. They're pushed out by larger corporations that, have more lobby power. Yeah, and you're right. That's a completely local issue.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, big
yeah,
time.
and that's just one topic. That's just road construction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I guess what I would say to that is there's enough diversity, and let's just talk about Rapid City. I tend to talk about the national stage quite a bit, but when we really get down into the micro of it all, in Rapid City, there's enough diversity in our population where there's somebody who has unmitigated potential in them to be able to cause an effective change in their community. And depending on what their life experience is what topic or what issue they'll go after to affect change. But there's for you, the first thing you brought up was road construction. For somebody else, it might be feeding the homeless, or for somebody else, it might be the schools or whatever it is. But there's enough people with enough potential to affect change. And I think that if we can spend less time distracted by these things that we don't have control over and place our attention on the reality that we can affect, the garden that we can tend to, which is here at home, the more these problems will start to be solved, because there's going to be somebody with the life experience that tells them to handle that problem. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like Piedmont, they have a 4th of July parade.
I'm going.
And tons of people go.
Yeah.
It's a huge, that's something that everybody comes out for. It's generational.
Mm-hmm. Kate, her family has a float every year. This
Yeah.
year it's her year to design the float, and she's like, it's going to be the best one there ever was.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But anyways, what you were saying about this generational
Yeah.
Piedmont.
What's
yeah.
important to our parents is
Yeah.
important to us, and
Yeah.
small communities is what we can control.
Yeah, and that's what they pay attention to.
Yeah.
And it's something
And
that the whole community
in those communities,
gets.
people are nicer to each other. They help them with stuff.
Do you think that it's possible for, Piedmont what's the population of Piedmont, would you say roughly?
I wouldn't even venture to guess, because Rapid City is 70, including Ellsworth.
Yeah, but I don't like to include anything else in Rapid
it's
City.
less than.
I would say it's between 65 and 70. I think the 2010 census was 67.
Yeah.
But,
But Piedmont and Blackhawk are,
yeah.
kind of,
Let's say 5,000 people between those two areas. Does that sound pretty?
yeah, maybe a little bit more.
And, between 5 and 10, we'll say, do you think that it's possible to achieve the same type of community connectedness that Piedmont has for their 4th of July parade in Rapid City on any level, whether it be in a neighborhood or, you know, west side and east side, you know, battling floats, you know, like some sort, do you think that it's, parade of lights, yeah. I would say that there is division in that and it's economic, but I definitely see that in some of the citywide activities in Rapid City.
Well, they tried that basketball thing down here on Thursday nights to help like the community and stuff.
I haven't even heard of this. I have no idea.
It's
I haven't even heard of this.
The fire department and the police department
Battling it out on basketball?
Well, actually, they just want anybody to just come and play basketball.
That's
like
awesome.
there's a lot of kids downtown, so they need activity to engage in.
Let's do Thursday night basketball night.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
that's
I don't
awesome.
even know where they do it, but I know that they have some people in charge.
Yeah. So here's what that would tell me. I hadn't even heard of that. That means that we don't have enough people paying attention to that to get the word out.
Right. But I just know people who are involved that's children are in basketball during the year and they want to just get a regular game going.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hopefully they still do it. I haven't heard about it at all this year.
Well, I think we'll have to look into that because that sounds pretty fantastic.
Yeah. Because anybody who just doesn't want to be down there with their parents and...
Another thing that I think of is the community garden down here just off of the fairgrounds. Do you know about that?
Yep.
Yeah, and so they have that really fantastic little plot of land, and whenever I stop in there, I know a few people that have some plots there. There's all of these people from different parts of town, and they're sharing gardening secrets, and they're you know, helping diagnose problems, and they're talking about what they want to plant next year because this year they've prepped their soil for it, and all this stuff, and you see just like sharing knowledge in your community, and it's really kind of beautiful. And I think, how many other types of community programs could we get going that would have that same effect? Because that's pretty wonderful. I think anytime people are getting together and sharing knowledge, that's a game changer right there. Yeah. Yeah. And it just takes everyone focusing their attention closer to home, I think, for us to start seeing those things.
Yeah, I think the walks that they have through town, like MS and, you know, Special Olympics and Alzheimer's, I think all those kind of help the community come together.
Well, and even last weekend, I was up at Zymurcracy because Jason was catering the Run for Beer. And I could not tell you if it was going to benefit anything or what it was, but there was at least 50 people running a marathon and downing beer. And
There is a club in Rapid
Yes.
that does that. They run from bar to bar.
And I think that's beautiful. Can we get some more of that? Anything like that. Anything where strangers are getting together for a common goal, no matter what it is, please, can we get more of that? Yeah.
Well, even like people training, I heard the instructor that taught class tonight.
Yeah.
She's going to be in the parade in Piedmont.
Awesome.
She also is going to do the Crazy Horse Run.
Oh,
So
okay.
she's going to start training for that.
Yeah.
I mean, just
and that's
even
a huge
being involved in stuff like that really, you know, keeps you in touch of, you know, other people that are completely out of your realm.
right
If
that you would
just
never
stick to your
normally
school, if you
come
just
in.
stick to your neighborhood, you know.
Getting people outside of their comfort zone a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah. Or even if you stay in your comfort zone, like I said, I would never want to tell people, you know, how they're going to be of use or how they should contribute them, you know, their attention or their time or their effort. I would never tell anybody that. But even if you just stay in your own comfort zone and make what you know and what you see a little bit better, you know, if everybody did that, that would be unstoppable. You know, it would just be exponential improvement. You know.
Well, even the volunteers they have downtown running around
Mhm.
helping people with directions. Did you know about them?
No, I didn't. That's
Yeah.
hilarious, and
They
I love
gotta
it.
Running around during the day.
Yeah.
Hey, you need help with something?
Right. Right.
You know, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Oh, you
That's
just-
so good.
Yeah.
Oh, and hey, and if you're around later, this place is having this event.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's what a cute local downtown thing to do, you
That's a
know?
volunteer thing.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
There's
Especially
this cute little dude out in front of one of the businesses, and I'm like, hey, you're one of those guys.
Mhm. Mm. Do they wear special shirts or?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What do they look like? I'm gonna keep my eye out for them.
I'm trying to think if they're like red, like volunteer, or
Okay.
ask me, or I can't
Yeah.
even remember what it was.
Okay. I'm gonna keep my eye out for them now.
Hmm.
Tell them they're doing a good job.
Yeah. And they're cute and they're happy.
Good. Okay, I like it. So yeah, there's all kinds of things that we could be doing locally that just makes everybody's lives a little bit better every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Starting a litter pickup in our neighborhood or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We need like groundhog pickup
A groundhog pickup?
because there's like roadkill in our
Oh,
area.
you know, I was
'Cause they have a
driving.
whole groundhog like little area, and
Yeah.
I've seen them up just right by the edge of the road.
It's that time of year. No, we were driving down 79 and all of a sudden the worst smell hit the car, and it was, I think it had to have been, it was a deer for sure, just because of the amount of the mess, but it had to have been out there for a couple of days. I
And
don't
they
know.
have road people that do that. Can you
I
imagine that
know.
job?
No.
Mm-mm.
That sounds awful.
No.
No. I think we should end it there with roadkill.
Yes.
So next week, I would like to talk about, last week I mentioned how I feel very thrilled to be living in a time when ethical companies are not only gaining steam, they're also gaining a lot of publicity and attention. And I feel really happy to be living in a time when capitalism is putting standards on itself. And so next week, I would like to talk about what kind of standards as consumers we would like to place on the companies that we do business with. Do we have any resolutions? Are there any boundaries that if a company crosses, we are not willing to continue with them anymore? Is there behavior that could put a company out of business for good? And if I believe that a company's sole purpose is not to produce higher yields for shareholders, I believe a company's purpose is to produce for the good of everyone. Not meaning, what I mean by that is that a company's purpose should also do good in the world. So that's what I want to talk about next week. And there's a lot of nuance to a conversation like that. There's a lot of gray areas when you talk about the tax code and you talk about human resource policies and that kind of a thing. But I think that it's really fertile ground for a good conversation. So I want to talk about that next week. Yeah. All done.